What's up, everybody? It's Warren Hampton. We are in downtown Phoenix at a turn-up spot. I have turned up many a times in this place at this particular table. But on this occasion, I get to preach the truth of God's word. So nothing wrong with the turn up. Matter of fact, the story that we're about to get into is about Jesus and Mary of Bethany and these religious folk and the disciples all being in a place of celebration in Simon's house. And so I'm gonna read the text, but there would have been people coming in and out of this house because it was customary around that time for people to share in the festivals. That's how the community was. And so this is why this woman comes into this place. And so Jesus is chilling. He's at a party. We know that somebody said, I heard a long time ago, that Jesus ate his way through the Gospels. And so he always sat down with people and talked to them, and he was very intentional. Let's get to the text in Mark chapter 14, verses 1 through 9, which is also a corresponding text in Luke 7, 36 through 50. I may bring some pieces of that together today too, but I want to focus on Mark 14, 1 through 9. And in the NLT version, it says this: it was now 2 days before Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. The leading priests and the teachers of the religious law were still looking for an opportunity to capture Jesus secretly and kill him. But not during the Passover celebration. They agreed, or the people may riot. They didn't want to kill him during a party because then they would just mess up their whole party. So verse 3 says, meanwhile, Jesus was in Bethany at the home of Simon, a man who had previously had leprosy. While he was eating, Jesus reclined at the table. And so here comes a woman with a beautiful alabaster box. It says a woman came with an alabaster jar of expensive perfume made from essence of nard. She broke open the jar and poured the perfume over his head. Some of those at the table were indignant. Why waste such expensive perfume, they asked. It could have been sold for a year's wages and the money given to the poor. So they scolded her harshly. But Jesus, his masculinity is gentleness. He dealt very gently with her, but not with the religious folk. But Jesus replied and said this: leave her alone. Why criticize her for doing such a good thing to me? You will always have the poor among you, and you can help them whenever you want to, but you will not always have me. She has done what she could and has anointed my body for burial ahead of time. I tell you the truth, wherever the good news is preached throughout the world, this woman's deeds will be remembered and discussed. Jesus knew that he was going to this Pharisee's house named Simon. He knew their thoughts before she even came in. And here is Mary of Bethany. There was a lot of women named Mary in the Bible, but this is Mary of Bethany, and she heard that he was in the area. And so, because of it was custom, she could come into the house because she knew who Jesus was by the way he reclined at the table. And Jesus knew that the Pharisees and people would look at her crazy. He knew that they would criticize her and be very critical and shame her for what she did. And so they were tripping about her reputation being a sinful woman or a sinful person. And here's how you know if somebody is from the devil or hides behind religion like the Pharisees. Ricardo Sanchez says this: the enemy knows your name, but calls you by your sin. God knows your sin and calls you by your name. Jesus didn't care about his reputation because he was her redemption. He didn't care what people thought about her being around him. He didn't care what people thought about her breaking open her alabaster box on his feet. He didn't care because he knew why she was there. He knew why he was there. And we have to stop caring what religious folk think when we bring the love and light of Jesus in rooms to meet people who are looking for liberation. Stop worrying about what religious folk think. They were tripping about the cost of her perfume. They weren't concerned about the poor. They were tripping about how she approached Jesus. And they were trying to find anything to disqualify her from being at his feet. I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of people try to disqualify me because of wrongs that I've done or marks that I have missed. But they weren't worshiping her like Jesus, like she was worshiping Jesus. They weren't worshiping Jesus like she was. And so when we're focused on those people worshiping Jesus, we're not focusing on the reason why we should be worshiping Jesus ourselves. Simon should have remembered his healing from leprosy, but religious folk have selective amnesia and think that they were born singing hymns and have been holy all their life and forget that the same Jesus that healed her is the same Jesus that healed him too. And so that's why we can't focus on religiosity and hiding behind the mask. This woman's heart was broken before God. Her spirit was broken before God. And the alabaster box was just an illustration of how she wanted to worship him. And Jesus knew they would question who he was. They said in the other text, they said, if he was a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is at his feet. This woman used to be a hoe. She used to be a hooker. She was out there. She had a hot girl summer for a few summers. And Jesus knew exactly what her reputation was. And he didn't stop her from worshiping her because he dealt with her in gentleness. And so we need to worship in the midst of haters. Jesus let her worship him in the midst of haters. We need to worship while haters are calling us hypocrites. We need to worship with an expensive sacrifice to Jesus when they're scolding us. Keep your focus on worshiping him. Worship when the crowds think you're wasting your perfume, your time, your energy. You're wasting all this trying to follow God. But you know that you worship him and it's not a waste because he saved you when you were at your worst. She was preparing his body for burial ahead of time. It was customary to anoint the body when it was dead with oils and stuff. She knew he was going to die. Somehow the Spirit moved her to do that, and she prepared Jesus for burial. That's why he said everywhere the gospel is preached, what she has done will be told around the world. Jesus didn't disturb her worship. He was gentle to her. He let her do what she needed to do. She felt safe to worship at the feet of Jesus. See, toxic masculinity has caused people to not feel safe in church, for women to not feel safe and have to start their own ministries and not be affirmed. But Jesus was never like that. Our women need to feel safe, men. Our women need to feel safe in our houses of God. If they are houses of God, they need to feel safe. She wept and she wiped when she worshiped him. And our tears in worship are not a sign of guilt. They're a sign of gratitude. I remember one time I was in church, at my father's church, leading worship. And after I was done, I was in tears. And somebody was like, oh, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. And I thought in myself, and I couldn't answer in that moment, but I was like, there's nothing wrong. I just love Jesus and I love his presence and I feel his love and his grace. And church folk miss it. They think you're guilty or you're in shame and you're convicted of something. No, I am convicted to worship him. It's my reasonable service as a living sacrifice. And she kissed him and she anointed him. She poured the oil over him. They don't know her story was changed by his story. And that's why we got to keep telling our stories. She kissed him and she prepared him for burial, and her story was told. See, religious folk, they may have shamed you. They may have talked about you. They called you everything but a child of God. But Jesus, he treats you with gentleness, with love, with grace, with forgiveness, and claims you as his own. And if this has triggered anything from you and you've experienced any religious abuse, I just want to stand in proxy and apologize for any man, any pastor, bishop, priest, imam, Pharisee, church member, spiritual leader that may have abused their authority, their spiritual and religious authority, and hurt you. I'm sorry that they shamed you. I'm sorry that they made you feel less than. I'm sorry that they didn't love you like Jesus did. That was them, but it wasn't God. You deserve the love that God has for you. I know it hurts. Even as a man, I've experienced this same shame and the ridicule and people calling me a hypocrite. And then on the other side, I used to be a Pharisee. I used to be self-righteous and look down on people who didn't sin like me. So I know what this pain is like to inflict it and for it to be inflicted upon me. But we deserve a love that liberates us and affirms us and lifts our head and honors you as daughters of the Most High God and honors you as sons of the Most High God. So forgive them and focus on the intimacy of Jesus. Forgive them and focus on him. And focus on that oneness that he wanted with us and God, and to live out this gospel. I want to end on a few verses that may help you. Matthew 11:28-30 says, and Jesus says, come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, not let them teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. And the last one is Matthew 21:5. Say to the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming, humble and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a donkey. It says he's humble and he's gentle. And I love that he says the daughter of Zion. So no matter what you've done or how long you've been doing it, nobody is too dirty for God's love. Preach that gospel. Tell your story, because whom the Son sets free is truly free indeed forever. Wipe and worship at the feet of Jesus. And I pray that our houses of God and the ministries that we claim that are for Jesus would be safe houses of God, where people can feel like they can worship no matter what their sin may have been. There's a God who accepts you as you are, but doesn't leave you as you were. So we thank God for his word and the story of Mary of Bethany, because nobody is too dirty for God's love. God bless.